There's probably nothing more awkward that I've ever had than half the room leave as you're getting ready to get up on stage. But no, thank you very much, Carolyn. This is the second time we've ever talked about this stuff, so bear with me and forgive any mistakes. But I was thinking about Alexis while he was up here. I wonder what the first class of Harvard feels like looking back. Because being in the first Y Combinator would be very similar. You say, wow, they never let me in now. Or we started something. I think that's a little bit of what we're thinking about at Capital One Labs, where, wow, they gave us this crazy idea, and they asked us to go be entrepreneurs inside of a large organization. Was that a good idea? Did we do something? How does it look looking backwards? So why are we here? Why do we need to change? The first, we as America and the rest of us have been reinventing our entrepreneurs for hundreds of years. You know, talked about this century. Well, last century, it was railroads was a big company. They were the huge barons of the industry. But creative destruction came along. It continues to come along. It's always there. What they forgot is railroads were not in the railroad business. They were in the transportation business. So us in banking, we have a similar thing. We need to remember what business we're in. We're not just in a banking business. We're actually in a business about the relationship with your money. So come back to APIs. This is the edict that Jeff Bezos gave in 2002 for his company, which was a digital forward company, super cutting edge. You may see things on here if you're an enterprise company that you recognize. Like, oh, these are concerns that we're dealing with. It's a decade later, but we're there now. These conversations have come to us more recently. So let's talk about the change. A lot of people have talked about iPhones. We even had a little dissertation from Naveen about what's the coolest thing in iOS 7. I do think identity is going to be a big deal. Look at this. See if you are on the home screen. See if your industry is being disrupted on the home screen. Two stories about the iPhone as it relates to Capital One. First, kind of walk around and ask executives in our organization, are we on the home screen of everybody's phones? If we're not, why not? This is the goal. This is that disruption that everybody's talking about. It's coming to us. We need to be fighting it where our customers are. And APIs are a way for us to push out and get involved with where our customers are. Meet our customers anywhere that they are. Again, if you're in an enterprise world, this is what API starts to allow you to do. It's one tool. It's not a silver bullet. But you can start thinking about these things and what it means to be in this internet-only world. And how do you unlock your data that may be in a COBOL system? It may be in a Lisp system. No offense to Reddit. But these are the types of things that you need to be thinking about. The other story, which is a little more tactical, is for us at Capital One, we were looking for iOS engineers. And it's a little story about my journey at Capital One and learning a little bit about where we were. So we were allowed to go hire a bunch of iOS engineers because we were the first people at Capital One to do some native coding. And it was great. I was like, oh, I get an internal recruiter. I mean, I'm from a startup in the previous world, so it's like, I get an internal recruiter? Wow. It's like I'm rich. Somebody's going to go find engineers for me. I know how hard it is to find engineers. Sometimes you're trying to find a co-founder. Sometimes you're trying to find a lead engineer. So got this internal recruiter, was super excited. Said, okay, we're looking for senior iOS engineers. Like, great. Senior at an enterprise means 7 to 10 years of experience. Awesome. So the next day, when I had my second recruiter, because the iPhone had only been out for 5 years, and there was no such thing as a 7-year iOS engineer, we started talking about it and said, okay, GitHub. Like, go look at GitHub, find out what their account is, see how they use open source. These are the types of people we want to do. I said, no, you mean LinkedIn? No, I mean GitHub. So on the third day, when I had my new recruiter, and we got through all of that process, this gal's great. Erica, she's super excited. She said, okay, I don't know what GitHub is. She goes, looks it up, says, can I get involved? Okay, how do I contribute to open source? How do I get it? That's the right person. So when you're in enterprise, and I know probably a greater percentage of the people who stayed are in the enterprise, the people who are leaning in, to use other phrases, who are engaged in this kind of thing, who are excited to go learn. Maybe they're doing Code Academy as a business person on the side. They will come find you. You can enable them. So while my title has innovation in it, it's not just about what we as a small team do. Innovation at Capital One is something about innovation everywhere. So we'll move along. We do have about $1 trillion in capital attacking our core business in different ways. These are all digital companies. You can see we as an organization are not just thinking about ourselves as a bank, we are thinking about ourselves as a digital company and what it means to be a digital company. And this is the competition. This is the new world in reality. So let's talk a little bit more about what the labs does specifically. So what you see here is a couple folks. I don't know if it's made it out here to the East Coast, but they're kind of important in Silicon Valley. I know there's been a little bit of Silicon Valley bashing earlier. But they're reinventing some of the stuff that happens in VC. The mantra for Andreessen Horowitz is software is eating business. So for us, software is eating the enterprise. And this is kind of one of the things that we think about as a theme. What would we do if we were a startup? How do we bring that in? And you can't just disrupt, because at the end of the mid-year and the end of the year, what did you do? How did you actually get that to your company? Because a great idea of using a new language in a corner isn't probably going to help change your company. So you have to think about what does it mean to come from the inside, and then also soft land these ideas into the rest of the organization. So Capital One Labs, we're a passionate group of entrepreneurs who are reimagining the way you interact with money. We do have kind of our founders, Mark Jameson up there on the left and Skip Potter on the right. These are two people who have been in large enterprises before, and they are helping us build this overall. Mark happened to work at McDonald's and helped found Redbox. I don't know if you know, but that was a spin out from McDonald's in their innovation group. And then Skip was a part of BT's innovation. So that's our peanut butter, if you've ever heard of that phrase. And our chocolate is a bunch of energetic entrepreneurs who, some have been inside large organizations, but most often they were actually outside. We've brought them together to be the lab. Now, without Mark and Skip, we would be lost as entrepreneurs. We wouldn't know how to kind of bring influence, how to manage disruption, how to manage projects in a way that was positive for the overall organization. Again, APIs is one piece of that. I asked Mashri as we were talking about this idea of standing up here before you today, and thank you for allowing me to stand up before you today. I said, if we just stick to APIs, it's going to be a really short talk, because we're pretty early in our journey. But if we talk about the other things, about how APIs are a tool, and how we're going to manage this creative process and how we do these different things, we'll actually have something to talk about. So quickly, the labs itself, we have offices in San Francisco, New York, and DC. You can see below, these are some of the things that we do in terms of how we're trying to help the organization. Some of these are very easy to quantify, and some of these are harder. I really resonated with the community evangelist. Those are the types of things that do happen. So tactically, this is what innovation looks like at a large company. You want to get the apple. You want the apple to go to market. Things happen. They're not necessarily additive. The vision may have changed a little bit once you talk to the legal department. Capital One, we have 4 different core businesses. They all have lawyers. I've talked to half of them. But at the end of the day, if you can get that apple through and bring that idea to market, you will have had some success, and it's very important. Again, back to more tactically how we approach things as a lab and at Capital One. What you see here are some of our core tenets. You can think of these as some of our mission statements. We are really mobile first. We are thinking about customers. We're doing design. We're collaboration. Not that these things don't happen in an enterprise, but when you make that your core, really, really good things are going to happen. Everybody here believes in APIs and open platforms. Or if you don't, I think there's a show later tonight that you might want to go to for Avenue Q. But so this is the choir. Let's talk a little bit about the journey. You've heard a little bit about internal applications, partner APIs, open APIs. The world is moving forward. Naveen actually stretched my reality of what it means to be quantified self. I have a a nifty jawbone. That dude's way over there. For the enterprise folks, I don't know if you were resonating with all the things he was talking about, but there are people in the world that think like this. These people may be some of your customers. Think about where you want to be as an industry on this spectrum. As a bank, we may not get all the way over there. We may not belong all the way over there. And in fact, I would argue we don't. I think identity, regulatory, security, these are things that are important to us. As an enterprise company, we have had to think about all of that as we've started our API strategy. I can't tell you how many different people Devin has talked to at Capital One about what it means to be an API and what it means to be well managed or secure. Everybody at the group has really helped us out in this journey. Aetna has been a great example for us. So most banks are here. We do have an external API. I'll show it in just a second. But remember, we're early. We're toddling along. Where we land, I'm not sure, but we're going to find out. So in the interest of Reid Hoffman's and Reddit's first version, this is our initial version in the market. We launched it a year ago, almost exactly, at San Francisco and BAPI in New York. So we had 4 APIs. 2 of them are core businesses for us. They're digital deals that enhances our credit card product, rewards that enhances our credit card product, but it is not the actual credit card product. I think it's important if you are just about to start your journey or you're thinking about an early product as an enterprise, what's something that's meaty enough to have value to developers, meaty enough to matter to the enterprise, and good for your consumers, but not so big that you have to talk to the CEO to present it as an API. You have to think a little bit about your marketing. You have to think a little bit about what you're going to do with that example. Because if you're starting an API platform at your enterprise, or you're thinking about it, the first APIs you do are your new business. Everybody's been talking about it. Think of it as a product. Think of it as a business. This could not be more true a year later. These things matter. How are you going to market it? How are you going to support it? How are you going to manage the change? How are you going to manage your product? If you're in an enterprise, you're going to have conversations with architects, with security. You're going to have to talk about what happens when you version it. You don't even know if it's going to exist in 6 months. And somebody or 10 people are asking you about versioning. So be ready. Think about these things. Find friends, find examples. Other people who are in the industry are usually pretty willing to talk because they'll share your pain over a beer. This is going to be important as you continue to kind of manage your platform and as you build your platform. Then take that example and dial it up a notch. Take your success, just like any other startup or any other thing, ramp it up to another bit of growth. Okay, what's our next business? What's our next API product? We're doing that right now. You'll see some stuff in the market from us probably in 2014. So motivations, I figured I'd speak to this just a little bit about why Capital One is interested and in the business of APIs. We have internal motivations, obviously speed, efficiency, recruiting. I would have loved it if those guys had not gone all the way up to Boston and turned off in Virginia and landed at Capital One a long time ago. I think they would have been great talent for us as developers from Reddit, but they weren't. Capital One's headquartered in Virginia, if you don't know. So these things are important to us. In addition, we recognize the markets are changing. Like you heard from all those startups earlier today, they didn't even know that there were markets available to them. We're aware of that too. And we have our own world, and it's banking, and we want to make sure that we are aware of what else is happening out there. And that we're not only just kind of tracking it in a spreadsheet of what new things are happening, but that we engage. That we have our rewards product is a great way for us to hear who's interested in starting to work with the bank. That's that inbound, expand markets, and innovate in our industry. I think you'll see more and more people in the financial tech and then also healthcare jumping into this world because they see the opportunity. I I don't know if everybody knows, but Braintree just got bought by PayPal. That was kind of a big deal. One of the core things they bought Braintree for was the developer platform. This is very different than what I talked about in San Francisco because it hadn't happened yet. But PayPal mimicked Braintree's platform, probably with a dozen people that they had working for 6 months to get that stuff live. They were in market live with that platform. Competitive documentation looked the same, it was all good. They still bought them because they had the community, they had the engagement. These are things that are really kind of interesting and a little scary if you're an enterprise and you're like, I have 0 developers with API keys today. Get there. Start with 1. Get the second developer. Do that community support. I answer our support box. And I do that because, like everybody's been talking about, you want to stay close to the people who have made it a goal of theirs to work with you. If you're early in your API program as an enterprise, don't give it to your intern, unless they're looking for an exit. But don't give it to your intern. Make sure the people are tactical, talking to developers, understanding the pain. Is it easy? Are you watching them go through your portal, doing these types of things? So moving on, this is our first API product. I've talked a little bit about rewards and how we view. It's one of 2 things we launched in the market. As you think about that growth and that journey, it's not just your platform that grows. It's each individual product suite or API. So what I've laid out here for everybody is our methodology, which is crawl, walk, run. So kind of the goal of each phase, you can see it, who's important in that phase, and then what your target will be over the time. You're going to do this when you launch. And you want to be in the crawl phase. Don't launch to 2 million customers when you run. Like, don't do that day 1. That's not the right answer. For rewards, we're here. We're still right between. We have a couple things in market. We have a lot of inbound interest, and we're making sure that we're working with partners that we're going to be successful with. So that's exciting. I mean, I love the rewards product. I love where we are with it. We're managing it. It's one of the things we have in the catalog. We're going to have new catalog items coming, like I said. But you want to repeat for each individual API, every time, every suite. So Oren mentioned earlier the spinning frisbee thing. That thing looks like it would hurt if you tried to catch it. So I'm probably not going to do that. This is Gartner's hype cycle. If you don't know it, it talks about everybody's excited, life is good, bad things happen, and then you find the new normal. Let me repeat, this is not Capital One. This is not our journey. This is just a possible journey. But be ready for a little bit of inflated expectations. When we launched, we did hit TechCrunch. It was super exciting. We do have our products. We have our great ideas. And then I'm going to stop talking about the rest of that slide. Again, not Capital One. Don't get me in trouble on the Twitters. Don't get me in trouble on the Twitters. So I talked a little bit about some of the things that we do to foster innovation inside Capital One. Everybody loves a hackathon. We have a thing called a hot house, and then we use design thinking. So I'll go through these briefly. Design thinking is a process from Stanford's design school. They have a PDF online that you can find and look at it and get much more detailed about how to actually run a quick session. But the idea is you start with empathy, you start with your customer, you go through some definition, you ideate, and maybe you go back to the beginning, or you prototype. At no point did you start with a PowerPoint that said NPV. In enterprise, you might be very familiar with NPV, less familiar with APIs. But for this, it's all about the customer. Being a rich startup, in this case, it worked out. We were fortunate to hire one of the Stanford professors, and I'm privileged to work with a wonderful woman by the name of Evelyn. So design thinking helps us get ideas from other people in the organization and talk to our real customers. We also use hot houses, where it's something that's a little more top-down. We take maybe anywhere from 50 to 100 people and then put them together in a very, very rapid session where the executives are in the room, and it's almost like they're your internal judges, and it's not a hackathon, but it's just the whole process of making sure everything gets done very, very, very quickly. So you take something that could be 10 to 12 weeks and you compress it down. Again, this isn't API specific, but it's a little bit about reinventing the enterprise. How do you take long meetings, long processes, make it a very different behavior and pattern? Finally, like I said, everybody loves a hackathon. We do them. I was fortunate enough to launch the first hackathon at Capital One. This was the second one. The first hackathon, and true story, I went down to Trader Joe's, grabbed a shopping cart, filled it with Red Bull, snacks, and some veggies, because you gotta have a few healthy things. Grabbed our 15 developers from the lab and a couple product people that were hanging around that day and said, okay, tomorrow, all this gear is gonna be on the conference room. I've booked it for 24 hours, and we're gonna see what we can do. We ended up having 3 ideas come out of that, one of which was awful. They bought it in Greenough and took a shoebox and made a fridge to open beers using the light sensor on your iPhone. You can imagine the banking folks are like, how does this relate to payments? Like, no, it's just cool. Just tell the story at the college. It'll work. You'll get more recruits. Trust me. But then we had something about an Instagram plus savings goal applications. So these things happen. This is the second one where we had a lot more engagement. We had the COO of the company actually come judge the hackathon at 10:30 at night on a weeknight. He left all of his kids at home and came in and then bought beers for everybody at the bar afterwards. And we'll see more of this. As another pro tip, if you're an enterprise and you're thinking about running a public hackathon, also consider other options, because it may make your life easier with your PR and your brand and some of these other people. If you know what you want to do or you have your themes, there are organizations out there like Topcoder or Challenge Post where you can run contests that are more privately held rather than letting the unwashed masses in and seeing your data and API keys. Again, pick the right tool for what your problem is. For us, design thinking, hot houses, and hackathons do generally cover it. So I'll wrap up towards the end here. Last time in San Francisco we were talking, Daniel Jacobson and I found out about 10 minutes before our presentation from Netflix that we had the same slides. It was super weird, because it's like showing up to the Oscars with the same dress as somebody else. But afterwards, I was marveled, because you had Netflix. I mean, Netflix, who is API. Go look at his talk. It's on Mashery. It's awesome. He wrote a book. I've read the book. It was good. We're talking about the same thing. Netflix and APIs, Capital One. Very different ends of the spectrum. They're very mature. We're very early. But this is a talk from Simon Sinek. It's one of the second most viewed YouTube talks, where it talks about product. And it talks about how, a couple people are nodding, so I think YouTube's still out there. It talks about why Apple succeeded, why the Wright brothers succeeded, why Martin Luther King succeeded. And the whole point of why they succeeded was they started with why. They didn't start with what. In enterprises, we often choose to start with what. So I'll do my version of his talk related to Capital One. So if you start with what, it might go something like this. Today I'm here to debut a mobile banking application. It uses your iPhone, which in a bank might still work because there's probably some BlackBerries. Why do you use it? Because it's way better than checks. Totally unsexy, not that interesting. You're not going to inspire developers. You're not going to change your organization. You launched an application that replaced a check. Okay. So if you flip it and you start with why, we're here to change banking for good. How? I'm going to improve your relationship with your money. What? Creating a digital product that you will always have with you at any time. And you can do what you want with your money. Really different vision. So I'll leave you with this. Manage your APIs as a product. Work with your developer community, internal or external. But then also think about why you're launching your API. Why are you launching that specific product? For us, that would be the bad version. This is where we want to be. We want to help people reimagine how they interact with their money. APIs is a tool. Thank you.